we are here right now with Alejandro and Andrea. So,
Hi.
guys, feel free to introduce yourself. The people are listening to you. So, if you need to share, if you want to share something, so just click sharing on your right side, and you can share your slides. So, if you have any questions, so please just talk to me. Feel free
Okay.
to introduce yourselves.
Okay. Andrea.
Hi everyone. Sorry for the delay. Let me just make sure I am sharing. 1 second. And if you guys can confirm you're seeing the cover slide, so we can get
Yep.
started.
Yeah, it's
Perfect.
working.
Okay, cool. Can you hear me well?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. So thank you so much for having us. Of course, technology always gives us some hard time to make it fun. So here we are, and we'll make it hopefully entertainment for this Saturday morning. So we're here with Ale to share with you experiences, practical information about using the attack matrix for threat detection and investigation. And we are pleased to be part of this conference today. So with that, we'll tell you a little bit about us. Let me see. Is that moving? Here we go. Okay. Ale, you want to go ahead, present yourself?
Sure. So I am a software engineer. I've been working first at Intel and now McAfee for the last 15 years as a software developer and in general, delivering software solutions. I've been doing a lot of engineering management and project management. And then I discovered that I really like, working with data, with Splunk or ELK, whatever is available, right? In order to do analytics, and then I started I got into the InfoSec journey, right? And started to contribute there with some investigation playbooks and threat detection. And now I am, all in on threat analytics and I'm working also as a detection engineer for Envision EDR. Andrea?
Okay, thank you. My name is Andrea Zabala. I'm a product manager presently with McAfee, sharing a similar path with Ale, being part of the initial group for Intel, forming the software design center here in Cordoba, Argentina. Right now, I drive roadmap and plans for the active response and enterprise detection and response platforms, and working closely with Ale's team. So we make sure we drive our products towards the right north, and with the feedback from what we observed in our customers and telemetry and endpoints. So with that, we can move on. So for today, we have prepared an agenda that will have just a little bit of an intro on the theory about MITRE and the MITRE attack, why those are important key pillars in our day-to-day jobs and products, and how that it's helping us in many angles, not only internally in the organization and across teams, but also in the communication and working closely with our partners and customers. And then we'll get into some of the details on a case, a practical case, an example. So then we can wrap up sort of a summary recapping on what we've talked today, and we will leave you guys with some food for thoughts, afterthoughts that's information that we thought it would be fun to explore, and also probably connect in a future with us or part of our team and experts that we have in McAfee. Okay, so let's get started. You probably heard a lot these days about this concept of shifting left. What that really means in cybersecurity. If we are in trying to picture a timeline or a kill change, most of our focuses sometimes are towards the hit, right? When we get impacted, and all the rattling that comes after, and the high impact, the high costs of overcoming that impact. What if, instead of starting from being hit, we could get proactive, right? And that's the shifting left. So when we are only in our radars looking into being reactive, it's more expensive for organizations to overcome that impact. But if we go to the left and start being creating plans for and programs for predicting and prescribing, is where we can get ahead of our adversaries. So how organizations and products focus mainly in detecting, so we can fast respond to what we see. For that, we build effective detect and quick response plans. One way of doing that is leveraging the MITRE attack framework, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So what is MITRE? You might have heard this organization, nonprofit, born in the US in the 50s. It's a body of knowledge right now, very popular in cybersecurity among different teams. There's also an active community that they foster. They not only they publish the attack framework, but keep it up to date in this ever-changing context of cybersecurity. MITRE also, it's very important to us with their evaluations and assessments, so we can sort of score and benchmark our products. And again, it's a body of knowledge, ever evolving, very active community that we always look out. In terms of what MITRE kind of proposes is, in this ever-changing and more sophisticated attack context, we must constantly evolve our tactics, techniques, and procedures and technologies to keep pace. So one analogy is the Red Queen telling Alice that to get ahead, you need to run twice as fast. And that's how it feels being in cybersecurity, right? You need to get ahead so you can shift left, actually, on what we just saw. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the MITRE organization. Now, what's this MITRE attack that everyone talked about? This matrix is like a true north for all of us in cybersecurity and striving to develop successful products. So this is a matrix, a framework that it's globally accessible. It has a congregation of knowledge based on real-world observations. And actually, ATT&CK stands for adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge that I think defines pretty well what this framework proposes. Others like to call this matrix like the lingua franca for the world of cybersecurity. Makes sure we all speak sort of a same language and we can communicate in our goals towards getting ahead of adversaries. Ale, chime in anytime you think. I'll keep going. Okay.
Sure. Doing great.
Cool. So why we need this type of information and leveraging these resources? We see every day more sophisticated attacks that involve more and more steps in the kill chain. And usually they can take many weeks or even months before they get detected. Again, shifting left, right? Not waiting for being impacted. So all this proposal in this framework will see that they are sort of extending the steps into the attack and offering information about all the tactics and techniques, so we can march towards that and make sure our products cover the most of this framework. Okay, here. So the MITRE offers this attack navigator. As I was mentioning, on top you have the tactics. If you recall, the most popular kill chain study with 7 main steps in the attack, MITRE over time is kind of expanding that and making it more granular as we see more wiser attacks. So you have all the tactics on top, and then for each of the stages or the steps, you get the techniques. That is what the attackers apply to get to their goal. And then again, here, if you recall and tying back with what we just talked, we want to shift left. So let me see if I can do this. This is where we want to play, and for that we are leveraging this attack navigator. It also gives us a complete picture on the enemy's playbook. So if we want to get ahead, we rather learn how they're moving, right, and try to instead of follow their steps, we want to navigate with them, right? Walk in their shoes. So for walking in adversaries' shoes, we need to understand what's the most challenging for them, right? So if we look at the pyramid of pain from David Bianco, we know that at the level of TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, is the most challenging level for attackers to change. So if we want to not get hit and shift left, how we play and defend in that level. And that's another way of leveraging and using this attack matrix to understand what's the attacker's behavior. So we prepare our products and practices to fight that.
Yeah, and Andrea, if you allow me here, so if you look at the pyramid of David, right? If you think of IOCs, like for instance, a hash, so it's very easy for an attacker to actually go and recompile a tool, and now it has a different hash. So the IOC, has changed. It doesn't work anymore, and they can do their stuff, right? What they cannot do that fast is that if their tactics, right, their procedures, if they are, using the same type of tools in order to, for instance, moving laterally, that's what they do. It's more complex for them to now replace one framework for another framework, right? So that's why if we can catch them on their TTPs, it's going to be harder for them to, evade the defenses, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Thanks, Ale. Okay. So with that intro on MITRE and the attack framework, why we think this is important, right? So We also mentioned that it has many views, many angles, different teams, cross teams, looking to probably different perspectives and knowledge. So it's a great asset for learning. It's a gold mine of information, updated information from real observation, not only for teams creating products, cybersecurity products, but also for security analysts and threat hunters to be up to date. It's also a North Star for in the maturity level path for organization. It's a knowledge base where you can take best practices and apply within your own organizations. As I also mentioned before, it's an active community, so it gets us speaking same language across the world and exchanging different best methods. Especially for product management, when speaking to the industry, to customers, to partners, it's a kind of a normalized language to talk about product coverage, efficacy, to benchmark your own products against others, and also gives you context for those threat hunters and investigators working on a daily basis to defend their organizations. It's also a very good material to develop people in cybersecurity. We all know how hard it is to find skilled resources around the globe. Ramp curves in cybersecurity are sort of challenging. So this is a great knowledge base to do that. And probably some examples on how these tactics and techniques are part of a daily consults for those security analysts monitoring and investigating threats on a daily basis on a console. So they get this framework as a kind of a map on where they are at and any threats that they might see coming in. Ale, you want to comment anything on this one as well?
Yeah, so let's move forward. Yeah, so we are gonna cover some of these details in the next slides with one example. We are gonna talk about Ryuk. So I guess most of you have at least read something about this. So Ryuk is a human-operated ransomware, right? That has been active for at least a couple of years now. But if you think of what they are doing since October, right, October and November in US, it's crazy, right? So they are targeting US hospitals and US health centers, right? And they are causing, a lot of damage there, right? So we can move to the next slide, Andrea, if you want. So if you look at some of the news related to Ryuk, right? So they are getting like a lot of impact, as I was saying, and they are moving very fast, right? So if you think of the matrix that Andrea showed from the left of the matrix, where you have the initial access, for instance, to the right of the matrix where they do, impact, right? They are being very, very quick, right? So it was common last year, let's say, or pre-pandemic, let's say, to see that they will take like several weeks or several days to move from left to the right of the matrix. But now there are reports that are saying like only in a few days they can do everything, right? So in a few days they can get into your organization, they can spread, they can move laterally, right? They have their their code running in maybe hundreds or thousands of machines in your organization, right? And then at some point they hit, and when they hit, they will encrypt your disk and put the ransom note on your users' desktops. And at that time, if you have not noticed already, probably your IT guy is gonna start getting the the phone calls, right? So the user will say, yeah, I cannot access my files anymore, right? So what is most scary about this is that so this screenshot I'm showing here is from the Mandian team. They gave a talk like 1 month ago, and they were like kind of surprised about the speed, right? So they were seeing like only 2 days, right? So this is like 13 times faster than before, right? But they also mentioned that there are reports, and you can find those on Google, right? That Ryuk has been seen taking just a few hours or minutes, right? So what it means from a defender's perspective is it means that we are gonna go and grab lunch now, and maybe when we come back, all systems are taken, and data is no longer, right? That fast they are moving, right? So for us, for defenders, for practitioners, for security vendors, right? For everyone in this industry, wow, this is really challenging context, right? For us, right? Okay, so let's move forward to next slide. So if you ask me what Ryuk is, I will probably say something like this, right? So they do impact by encrypting your data, and they're gonna do stuff on your systems to prevent your systems to recover. And they are gonna use system tools that are available on most Windows systems, right? By default, right? Regarding how it starts, so Ryuk is gonna start typically with a phishing email that's gonna try to get the user to execute, for instance, a malicious document. It could be a Word file, Excel file, PowerPoint, right? And when the user activates that, if it enables macros, for instance, that's gonna have an initial piece of code of the attacker running, maybe through a LOLBus, execution, PowerShell, or CMD, whatever, right? And at that moment, it means that some code of the attacker is running in the victim's organization, right? What they are doing a lot is they are using loaders like Emotet or TrickBot to load and download the second stage malware, right? And more tools. And they are using a lot, for instance, post-exploitation frameworks like CobaltStrike, Empire, Metasploit, right? So if we stop here for a bit, you can think, yeah, ransomware is just ransomware, right? So only some uneducated user will fall on it, and ransomware is maybe not interesting because it is just conventional malware, right? Really, right? So this is really sophisticated, right? This is getting sophisticated, right? So I guess most of you know about CobaltStrike or Empire or Metasploit, but these are frameworks that allow an attacker or red teamer or pen tester, right, to do a lot of stuff on a system, right? So when in this type of scenarios, when a real bad actor manages to have their CobaltStrike beacon running and calling home, yeah, you are in big problems already, right? Then what I will tell you also is that once they are on the victim's organization, they're gonna grab credentials because they need to move to other machines as well, right? And they will use tools like Mimikatz, right? For instance, and they will do OS credential dumping with Mimikatz, right? So, and then you have persistency and you have discovery, So this is like in my view, right? This is what I can tell you today about Ryuk. But the important thing about the attack matrix, right, is that there are a lot of links on this slide, right? So you have, first of all, you have the techniques. So for instance, on the first line, you will see that data encryption for impact. That's the name of the techniques according to the MITRE matrix, right? And you also have the ID T1486, right? So if you were to click on that link, it will take you to the matrix, and you're gonna get details on this technique. You will have examples of these techniques, and you can have you can have a lot of context almost for free, let's say, about what is this about, right? But ATT&CK is a great knowledge base. That's cool. So very cool. But also, as Andrea mentioned, this is a common language, right? So if something new is happening, right, like a very hot in the news, right? So you will have researchers all over the world saying, yeah, I am seeing this behavior, I'm seeing this technique. They're gonna use the name of the matrix, probably they're gonna use the technique ID, right? So they are gonna enrich their analysis, and when they share maybe on Twitter or whatever, they're gonna give you, so this is like this is helping to accelerate the knowledge sharing, and it is helping all the defenders all over the world to react faster and to reuse some of the previous research, right, and collaborate on research, right? So I think this is this slide talks a lot about the value, of the attack matrix in order to give us a common language, right? So let's go to the next slide. So instead of seeing what Alejandro thinks Ryuk is, so let's the attack MITRE, the attack framework also provides a definition for Ryuk. Right? So you can go there, you have like a catalog of hundreds of tools, right? And for each tool, you're gonna have like a quick description. So in this case, it will say Ryuk is a threat actor that does ransomware, and then it's gonna show you the techniques, right? And then you're gonna see details, right? So what they are actually doing, for instance, for T1490s inhibit system recovery, they are using BS as admin for deleting the shadow copies, right? So the systems cannot recover, right? Or for instance, on T1489, they are doing service stop. It means that they're gonna try to stop the antivirus processes, for instance, before doing their stuff, right? Okay, so now this is not only what Alejandro thinks, this is what the community thinks about Ryuk, right? So this is getting better, right? And if we go to the next slide, so this information is from May 2020. So now if we look at this one, so this is a threat alert from the US government that it was issued on October 28th, right? So when the thing was really hot, let's say, 1 month ago, they share like this report, and in this report, if you look at it, you're gonna see multiple references to the MITRE framework, right, as well as new observations that that the team that provided this report has made, right? So again, you're gonna have like a new information, so not from May, but from October, right? But using the same language that the community is using, right? So let's go to the next slide, please. And so what can you do, right, with this type of information, right? So if you think of this example of Ryuk, right? So if you wait until everything is encrypted and the ransom nodes are there, right? It's probably too expensive to recover, right? But if we think, okay, they are doing this very quickly, right? So they are doing this in minutes, right? It means that they are doing a lot of automation. So there is a human operating the malware and the attack, but huge part of the attack needs to be automated. Otherwise, they cannot do it in minutes, right? So, for instance, if you look at the discovery that they do, right? You can now, okay, let's try do some hunting for the domain trust discovery technique, that is something that they do, right? So if you can search in your environment with your tools that you have available, you can find this, let's say, precursor activity for Ryuk, right? And that way you can anticipate, right? So we have learned from the reports from US government, from the MITRE repository, or maybe some expert that you have in the team. You have learned that this technique T1482 is part of this campaign. So you can go now proactively go and try to find the stuff right on your environment, right? And the same for, so credential access in this case is like an easy one, because I will say that this has like a low false positive rates, right? So if you find mimikatz in your environments, right, I will say that, yeah, maybe you have some security researcher doing something, but most of the times that you see that means you know, something bad going on, right? And then you can see, okay, I see mimikatz running, right? I see the discovery with ID fine, right? Okay, how it started. So and if you manage to you know to follow all the line to an email, to a malicious document, right, or a potential malicious document, right? So now you are having more and more evidence that points to, or that could explain the situation as a something like Ryuk, right? And when you do hunting, this type of hunting, it means that you are setting scope somehow. In this case, what we are doing is setting the scope of the hunting using the techniques that we are interested on, right? And then we do hunting. And when you do hunting, you look at your data, whatever tool you have available, right? And you start knowing normal, right? So I had this example many times when I work with the McAfee SOC team, right? So they see like a tool doing something, you know, very suspicious, and I say, yeah, this is the new compiler from C#, right? So they use, yeah, don't worry, or do worry, because we don't do anything with C# these days, right? So if there is C# running, it means it could be someone is trying to compile after delivery, right? But knowing normal is very important, and we think that if you can do your hunting based on hypothesis, this gives you like a framework and a structure to your learning on that, right? And of course, eventually, you will manage to find abnormal and find the bad guys, right? So this is yeah, thank you, Andrea, for the support there. Okay, so
I'm applying for a UX position, you know.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move to the next one. So now let's take another look to the matrix again. So let's go to the next one. Right. So as we saw before, so the matrix has a lot of cells. Every cell on the matrix talks to a technique that an attacker will use to achieve a particular goal, right? In this case, I am just picking on this one, process injection. So what you see there is 11 ways to do for an attacker to do process injection. If you click on any of those 11 items, you're gonna get details, you're gonna get examples, right? And now if we look at the right of the screen, there is also information that talks about platforms. Data sources, right? So what are the data sources that you as a defender should take care of if you want to defend from process injection attacks, right? So it guides you, it tells you, okay, you need to do API monitoring, DLL monitoring, file monitoring, name pipes, process monitoring, right? So if you want to detect process injection, you need to be able to at least query those data sets, right? And then it also talks about what are the defenses that the attacker is trying to bypass if they do process injection, right? So gives you another another point of view to think about the matrix, right? So if we move to the next slide. right? Okay, so let's go back to the matrix, right? So please be careful with the matrix, right? So you can use it in many ways to communicate important stuff, right? I think the matrix is great for starting conversations, for instance, with senior leaders. But what will green means, right? So if you pick anything of that, pick on privilege escalation column, pick new service. What does, so this is green. What does it mean being green there, right? It depends on your business, right? So in my business that I'm writing detection content, it means that we are gonna try to highlight any anomaly on service creation, right? So that's our job, right? But even there, which seems, yeah, this is more or less, you have the scope defined. There are so many ways that you can create a Windows service, but assuming that we are talking about Windows, right? Because you can also have other OSs as well, right? I will say that every cell of the matrix per se could be limitless, infinite. I mean, be careful if you say, yeah, you are covering, for instance, when you talk about coverage, right? If you are protecting one company and then you are trying to show with this type of visualization what techniques you are protected from, right? So really, do you think that that will work? Is that enough? Probably not, because the attackers are all the time, they are doing new ways to, you know, to create a new service in a new fashion that you cannot detect, or they are going to try to evade the defenses all the time. They are doing so, and the matrix itself is changing all the time, as Andrea shown, right? So I think the visualizations based on the attack matrix are great. So start conversations, getting conversations started. Careful if you try to, you know, measure your progress or the progress of your team doing with this kind of visualization. Be careful, right? Because be careful of what can you really assure in your messages, right? Very cool. Let's go to the next slide, please. Cool. So this is there are two versions of the one of the latest changes on the matrix has changed its shape. So you can see that the difference in the matrix, right? So imagine that you have picked the matrix in order to show progress to your management, right? And that's the way you communicate, right? Okay, now the whole framework that you are using to communicate has changed, right? And what we are gonna do now, right? So this is one example of this is an evolving thing. It is changing. It is moving forward. One of the changes that they did on this specific change on version is that they are adding sub techniques. So sub techniques are much more granular, right, and more specific. And I like them because this is something like, as a detection engineer, I can develop detections against specific procedures, and then I can test with some scope, let's say. Otherwise, if I just want to detect and test, I don't know, PowerShell. How do you test PowerShell? What does it mean? It means nothing, right? I think this change has been very positive because it gets more granular and something that you can action it better and faster. To the next one, please. Okay, so we can move forward. So version 6 was the one with the subtechniques. Cool. So if you are looking for ways to interact with the attack matrix, right? So I want you to introduce this tool in case that you don't know already. This is called MITRE Assistance by our colleague Carlos Diaz. So it's gonna give you like a programmatic way to access the matrix. And when there is a new version of the matrix, for instance, it's gonna tell you what is the difference, right? And what is new. And yeah, I think that this is relatively new, and I think it's a great asset. I think we can move forward now. Very cool. So this is a picture of the team here in Cordoba. So we have done a lot for, let's say, investing on the team, and the matrix has helped us to organize the learning, right? For instance, we are doing like a purple teaming, a lot of purple teaming. When you do purple teaming, it means that you have like a red teamer, like is playing the role of the bad actor, and you're gonna get together with the defenders. So you have the red and the blue of the defender, and together it gets a purple color, right? And they work together in order to emulate an adversary, right? So one example of this could be like a MITRE APT assessments. So these days they are doing the FIN7 assessments. They are running the FIN7 assessment, right? So MITRE will play the red team, and in this case the defender's gonna play the blue team, right? And we are gonna learn a lot actually of this type of interactions between, you know, the bad actors, or the, you know, in this case the red teamers, and how to actually as they will try to emulate the attackers, and the defenders will wanna, you know, try to defend from that, learning from the red teamers, you know, at the same time. Then we are doing a lot of rotations as we can within McAfee SOC and engineering, for instance, right? And then we have our engineers joining the customer calls many times. So when we talk, we talk in terms of the matrix many times, right? So we talk in terms of techniques. So it's really helping us to you know, to frame the conversations as we saw, right? Okay, so for us has been, in general, has been also a framework for learning. Okay, so if we recap, so we said that the attack framework was important, right? And yeah, so I hope that now you get an idea of the potential that it could have for you and for your organization, for your team, right? So we just talk about learning. We talk about community alignment with threat intelligence, right? Of course, you have many solutions and vendors that are gonna use the same vocabulary, the same language now in their products, right? So it's gonna help on alignment there as well. And then when internally to one organization, we talk about adversary emulation a bit, and how to use the information for, you know, detection and hunting, right? And the importance of the matrix for as a communication, right? Enabler of communication, right? So I hope that we managed to deliver these messages properly. And now we can move to the, I think, the last slide. If okay, so what can you do next, right? So of course it's gonna depend a lot on the resources that you have, the talent that you have, the tools, right? The access to the data that you have, right? But in general, I think that we also should consider using the framework for instance, for gap risk assessment, right? So are you prepared to stop the bad guys on the initial access? Or at least to give it a good try, let's say. Are you prepared for that? What happens when you fail on stopping them at the initial access, which will happen, right? Eventually, right? What is next, right? So what are your defenses, right? So the first thing will be check your defenses, right? And then there are very interesting things with, for instance, adversarial emulation testing, red teaming, right? And also what we talk about hunting and communication, right? So this is more or less like some ideas. Of course, I guess there are other ideas as well, and maybe some of you have more other experiences, right? Using the attack. Okay, Andrea.
Yes, I think this is a good recap on what we've talked. We kind of wanted to cover the matrix on a probably theory aspect and then see how the matrix can be applied. Of course, it's not all the ideas you probably will find on your own purposes how to use these resources. If you haven't already get involved with the MITRE community, it's one of the best ways to keep pace and stay up to date on what's going on. And again, as we were mentioning with Ale, it's a way of speaking this language that whatever you are, any industry, any vertical, any part of the world, we kind of have a common understanding of that. And it's also a good way of learning, as Ale mentioned about his team. Defender teams and content teams, they have to be on a learning mode on all the time to be getting ahead in this dynamic industry. So and with that, we wanted also to offer you some extra additional information for taking away. Part of the team that we work with, it's having a deserved Thanksgiving break as well. But Ale mentioned Carlos Diaz. We also have Ismael Valenzuela, that is one of our most respected experts. So many of these events that you can get access to are recorded. So there's a webinar on how to thrive for your SOC analyst, and there's also resources about what Ale was mentioning, go hunting, and how you could leverage some real-time search queries to do threat hunting, threat intelligence leverage for hunting as well. So many videos that you can go and check, and then come back with questions and engage with us if you like to. And then also more information about what's MITRE from probably a McAfee practitioners standpoint, people that we have in Europe, that it's nice also to see based on where you are, what's your region needs, that sometimes are slightly different between the continents. As we do know about Latin America, there's some different needs, and this MITRE framework help us also to put a framework on that. And then there's a very nice talk that I encourage you to see. That is the DevBlue Applying Software Engineering Practices for blue teaming from Lucia, one of our team members here in Córdoba, together with Ismael. Is that the correct Ale description? Very nice talk delivered in the SANS Summit. And with that, I think we are ready to thank you for your patience, for the delay. I hope you enjoyed. I'm not sure if there are any questions or any comments that we could address. Probably we're past on time, but we'll be glad to engage with any comments or questions.
Hey, Andrea, I'm just checking here. So far,
Okay.
no questions. Guys, feel free to ask. Let me speak in Portuguese. Maybe someone wants to not speaking, but write some question in Portuguese.
Claro, não fique tímido, pode falar português e aí a gente vai fazer alguma coisa.
Pessoal, se alguém tiver alguma pergunta, é só mandar aí no PUR, né? No cantinho aí do Teams. Fiquem à vontade. So Andrea, you can wait a little bit if someone wants to write something. If not,
Sure.
Thank you so much, and very nice presentation. So it's pretty cool. Alejandro, thank you so much also for your presentation, and Also,
Thank you.
thanks for the McAfee to provide you both and give time to us to present it to the people, for the audience, for BHack conference. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So guys, so far no questions. If there is some future questions, I can so drop to the my contact in McAfee. They can forward it for you.
Yes, that would be good. You have our data. You know where to find us. We'll be happy to engage with you and this community.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Have a
Bye
good
bye.
day.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.